Prevention and treatment for those battling mental health issues, with today marking World Mental Health Day.
1 out of every 5 Australians will experience some form of mental illness each year, and nearly 1 in 10 Australians will experience some type of anxiety disorder. Australia still records low treatment rates, with the latest data indicating that only 35% of people with a mental illness are in care. World Mental Health Day is aimed at lifting the stigma on mental illness and encouraging the public to support those whose lives are impacted.
Joining us now in the studio is Meiron, the author of the book entitled De-Stress, Building Resilience in Challenging Times. Meiron, thanks very much for coming in.
It's a pleasure.
Tell us why we're not more resilient. Is that a growing problem in our community?
It certainly is. I think stress, anxiety, depression is on the increase, specifically in our contemporary culture. And I think the main reason why we're not resilient is because we haven't been taught how to become resilient. The school system is fantastic, but what it doesn't do is teach us an essential life skill, and that is how to think. And we're not taught how to view the stressful situations we have in an optimistic way.
Some people might say, oh, look, this is just navel-gazing. Come on, everyone's in charge of their own destiny. What would you say to that?
Well, I think it's an interesting point. And I think if you look at what stresses us out, and people feel stressed about different aspects of their lives, but often our external world controls our internal world. So, for example, if we're having a stressful day, normally it's what happens to us, not what we've particularly done ourselves. So we become victims to our external circumstances. So resilience is really about, well, how do we internally control our emotions so that we can feel in control of our stress on a daily basis?
So is it also true that gradually you're taking more and more on board, but you're not actually realising it, that you feel fine, but you might actually be soaking more stress in than you need to be?
Absolutely. And normally our bodies tell us what's going on. You know, our bodies are the objective experience of our thoughts. So if our body's tensing up and we're feeling tired, for example, we're not sleeping well, that's an indication there's probably some mental stress going on.
But it's not about denying either that the stress is there or the effects on our body, because physiologically some of those responses in our own body are actually useful for our own general health in dealing with stressful situations.
Absolutely. And in fact, our body is a really good guide to let us know how we're going. But most importantly, we need to appreciate the connection between our psychology and our physiology. Because when we're feeling stress, our body feels it too.
Meiron, you've said that you need to make your mind your best friend. Easier said than done?
I think it's possible, and what's so important is for us to make our minds our best friend by viewing our situations in a positive and optimistic way. So, for example, if we're stressing about something, let's rather look at the benefits and the opportunities that can come from that particular stressful situation, rather than allowing that stressful situation to control us. So making our mind our best friend is really to try to control that negative churn. You know, we have about 60,000 thoughts churning through our mind every day. Most of those are negative. So our challenge is to try and control and manage those thoughts.
What about a really sudden and disastrous thing where there is nothing good about it? For instance, close to home, the death of a loved one. More recently, the earthquake and tsunami devastation in our region. How do you think positively or well about that?
I think what's important is to recognise our feelings and not to wish something away. For example, if there's a death and a tragedy, of course, we need to mourn it. We need to recognise the pain and heal it. And in time, we can start feeling better about it, of course. But the situation normally is affecting us already emotionally. What's quite important is to recognise how we're going to look at that. And of course, when it comes to that kind of thing, like the tsunami, etc., it's a very, very, very difficult situation. You can't tell someone that just lost a loved one to go things positively. So it's important to honour our own emotions as well and go through the healing process.
And you've talked about transforming your thought attacks. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, a thought attack is when the mind turns on itself and attacks the possibility of a positive outcome for us. And it's those negative thoughts that are churning. So what's really important to manage that is to look at how else you can view a stressful situation differently. And it's all in the interpretation. So how we interpret the events that are happening to us will determine the way that we're feeling.
Okay, Meiron Lee, some good advice there. Thanks very much.
It's a pleasure, thank you.
Don't get too stressed.
Anyone who feels they need support can